Today we're talking about the next two solo leveling books, 5 and 6. Uh, let's get into it. The fifth book is probably the weakest so far. It's kind of boring. We never see Jinwoo get into a situation where we expect him to lose. And in that, it's gotten into very one punch sort of territory. The problem is when that happens, you have to have the surrounding story rise up to give us something to latch onto, and this book kind of fails there. Sure, you occasionally see some scenes where Jinwoo has to rush around and try to protect people, but there's never a doubt in your mind, really. At this point, you accept that Jinwoo's the strongest, and any stronger he gets is, good for him, but at the same time, he was already stronger than everyone around him. A little extra strength doesn't really tip the balance there. The one real good part of the book, though, is that we got a whole lot of backstory. The last four books, they've been hinting at what's going on in the background, why Jinwoo has this particular power. And this book's where it finally culminates and gives us a whole lot of that backstory. Not all of it, but a lot of it. And that was great to see. It's given us so much that we were missing before. But that's not a huge portion of the book. So it still feels kind of empty for this particular release because Jinwoo gets in a fight, Jinwoo beats the bad guy, Jinwoo goes home. And the subplots really don't manage to keep interest up, at least for me, in the book, with it lacking some of that tension you got in the first couple books, where Jinwoo's kind of weak and you're not sure if he'll win. Sure, he's fighting stronger enemies, but do you really expect him to lose at this point? That kind of wraps up book 5. It's, in my opinion, the weakest of the 7 that have released thus far. Still worth reading, but just not as good as the others because it got stuck in this problem where Jinwoo doesn't have challenges and the subplot isn't picking up fast enough. On the upside, though, moving on to book 6, things took a definite turn for the better. Like I said, this is an improvement on the previous book. Things got much better, much more interesting, and this is mainly because Jinwoo got new challenges. Specifically, you got 2 real new challenges. The first is going to Japan. The end of the last book told us that he was going to Japan, and that's where this one starts. We get to see Jinwoo breaking his army apart. He has the numbers now that it's actually an army. Before, we saw smaller instances of this when Jinho was under attack, or when he was splitting his army into squads for the Demon Castle. But this is the first time where each group is an army in its own right. And he's marching through Japan to single-handedly save them. You're not really expecting anything problematic to happen here. He's still Jinwoo, they're still monsters. But at the end of that particular mini arc, we get to get a little more backstory. The author's really getting better at integrating the story in now, as he finally gets to talk about some of the backstory. So we meet an important individual in Japan, and we get even more backstory. We learn a little more about what's going on, a little bit more about who the enemies are and why they're the enemies. And after Japan, he's pretty immediately shuffled off to America, where he's been chosen to represent Korea for this big summit of hunters, where all the strongest hunters in the world are gathering to mingle and discuss. And that's pretty fun to see. We get to witness Jinho grow as a character. Before, he's just been this little Jinwoo toady that follows him around and acts like a bit of a puppy dog. But now we get to see him grow a bit and act as the proper second in command of this business that Jinwoo is creating around himself to help deal with all the crap that he doesn't want to deal with. And that's basically Jinho's job now, is to take care of all the things Jinwoo doesn't want to do. So it's quite nice to see some character growth there. We get to see Jinwoo fight arguably the strongest person on the planet. So we have an actual scale of where he stands now. And we get to see him finally face a monster that is an active danger to himself. His power is at a point where Jinwoo could lose. And that's great to see. As the reader, we want to see that his growth means something. And if he isn't challenged, if he doesn't come up against enemies in situations where all this power is needed, then what's the point? So it's really great to see that. We get, a bit more backstory. We get a few more revelations about the underlying story arc. And that's, like I said, it's all really picking up now with giving us that backstory, and I love to see it. I love to see actual story instead of Jinwoo going from place to place, getting stronger and stronger. And that pretty much wraps up book 6. For book 7, I don't intend to cover it until book 8 comes out, and that's in a month and a half. It's like mid-July when that releases. I'm looking forward to it. I do not know how many books there are going to be in the series. I know it was finished and it's in translation, but I've not seen a definitive number anywhere. I know from reading the manhwa that the story's getting pretty close to the end, but I'm unsure how many more books that'll be once translated. So it could end at 8, it could go on. I'd be surprised if it went on much past 8, but you never know. We'll find out when that happens. If you like this video, please leave a like. If not, a dislike, and let me know what your thoughts on solo leveling are in the comment section below. I hope you all have a wonderful rest of your day.